Support for Kalamazoo Lively Arts is provided by the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation, helping to build and enrich the cultural life of Greater Kalamazoo.
Welcome to Kalamazoo Lively Arts, the show that takes you inside Kalamazoo's vibrant creative community and explores the people who breathe life into the arts. I'm John Koch here at Miller Auditorium. On today's show, we meet two storytellers bringing stories to the community at the Kalamazoo Valley Museum's Auditorium and Planetarium. And hear from Nichole Riley, a talented artist traveling with her work but calling Kalamazoo home.
Your art, take me through some of the themes.
Okay, so memory is a big theme, right? And with this one is a study or studies I did with encaustic, so this is wax on it. I also though embedded a smell to each of the piece, and the inspiration comes from the smell that I started with, and this was, I believe, bubblegum or cotton candy. The smell is not there anymore now. Okay, of course, it dissipates after. Yeah, it dissipates after a while.
Check it out.
So based on that, it's the idea too that I believe that we all try to apply some linear pattern or some organization to how we remember things. So based on the smell, what I remembered would be going to a circus or a carnival.
What kind of medium do you use?
I use everything. I prefer non-traditional materials. I prefer
like
I recently did work that really does work with like a screen printing process that is done with lemon juice essentially. And I have an installation piece I've done that the lemon juice is then heated. Remember making those when you were a kid, those secret messages and milk, and you put it over the light bulb?
I think I still make them.
Yes, okay. So like that. Screen printed it and warmed it up, and then the screen printing kind of emerges, much like memory. I think as you shift in your experiences in life, your memory also shifts and appears, reappears, disappears, those sorts of things.
Of course, that's beautiful work.
Yep, these are drawn on rice paper, small pieces of rice paper that are then embedded in the wax. So the rice paper absorbs the wax, so you can't even see the edges of the paper on there, so it just kind of becomes one. And then that idea that we try to organize our thoughts, but there's a ghost line, so it's always shifting. It's never permanent or linear in that sense that you store it. I think we're always adding to that story or those memories, whether it's from when we were a child or when we're adults or our children. Each layer becomes a new position for it, if you will.
Are you pretty unique with your niche?
God, every artist wants to think they're unique in their niche. I'm gonna say yeah. I think I'm unique in that you can't walk into my studio and see one thing. And I think you're told you should walk into somebody's studio and see something cohesive and unified. So you won't see that when you see my work. I kind of all over the place.
Expand on, I need bigger process.
Okay, I am very process oriented because a lot of what you see in my work, or rather, it's what you don't see in my work that is significant to me. Each step has a process that perhaps the viewer isn't aware of. In my installation, one of my most recent installation pieces, there are, I believe, 147 pieces of rather large paper that have been waxed that I folded hundreds of times, so hundreds and hundreds of folds. And that process is part of too what memory is or does when you have a blank sheet of paper and you impress a fold in it. That paper retains that memory. So the process of making that fold is similar to the process of making a memory. So a lot of what isn't seen in my work, the process of making these lines in each layer, isn't necessarily seen by the viewer, but it is significant to how I create work, especially work in regards to memory. because memory is a process.
Your little ones gonna be artists?
No, they are not.
Well, stay the course.
We try.
Oh, bonjour. Zalway na gamoten in there. Comanche, Hispanic, Nindal. Athen Dolchbia. Hello, everybody. I just introduced myself, my Anishinaabe name, clear singer, both sides. So that's my Indian name. My English name is Arthur Zapata.
Paul Surratt from Southern Straight, and tell me a little bit about your band, how it was started, and what it's all about.
So we are a group of multi-tribal citizens. We come from different communities, different tribes, and we've come together to express our songs and our knowledge through a Southern style of singing through our group called Southern Straight. Our lead singer Arthur Zapata, then our elders Terry Chivis, and then we also have women that sing behind us as well that sing along with us. Usually our family that comes along with us. And then we also have other tribal citizens that sing on here. Derek is from Pokagon Band Potawatomi, and then we have Bill, who's from Oklahoma. He's come up to visit with us and spend the winters with us. So he brings up some of that Southern style with him as well. But we have all types of drums in the Great Lakes area, so both northern style and southern style. But what we are representing here is more of a southern contemporary style.
What's the difference between the Southern style and the Northern style?
So the Southern style, we sing more of a deep tone, a deep baritone voices. Our beats are a little bit different. We have a little bit different what we call honor beats. And then the Northern style is very much more high-pitched, more high tones of singing. Sometimes the beats may be a little bit faster, and their honor beats may be a little bit faster. And the other thing we consider too is that there are some certain songs for dances or ceremonies that maybe only Southern groups may sing versus what Northern groups may sing.
So how does drumming bring a community together?
Well, it's the heartbeat of our nation, as we'll hear later when we hit that drum and the way it resonates. It brings people into our dance arenas, it brings people into our ceremony lodges, it brings people out to our round dance ceremonies, and our round dances, is another form of how we, pay tribute and pass those teachings along of drumming and singing as well. So once people start hearing that at a powwow, they know it's time to come out and start dancing to those songs.
And in researching Native American culture, I saw that grandparents play a really big role, and could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is a really big role. That seventh generation, we're into our seventh generation now of these teachings being passed down. My kids are starting to acquire those teachings, those ceremony teachings, and those songs. And grandparents are very influential to helping pass that down. But we just can't depend on them to understand that we need them to come out. We also have to include them in those ceremonies, and so we have our grandparent Terry, who's here with us, and he travels with us all over the place too, and he teaches us a lot of those old songs that he grew up with.
tell me, is there any kind of structure that goes along with drumming? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, so when we sing around the big drum, we have the certain songs we sing usually start out with a lead, and that's what a lot of times we call the lead singer, because they have that knowledge of that song. They're going to start that song out with a short lead or a long lead, depending on the song, and then the rest of us, we come in right behind that lead singer with the second part of that song. So while we're doing that, we're also, beating on the drum at a certain type of speed or beat, depending on what the song is intended for. So during that song, you're also going to hear that we'll do what we call on the southern side of honor beats, and that there is to help show that respect to that person or that song or those teachings that we're singing for. So as we do those songs, we also call what we a stanza, or what we call a push-up. We sing the song normally 4 times through, and depending on the type of ceremony, we may sing it further, we may sing longer, things like that, So there's structure behind it is keeping in mind that the teachings that we use when we're making the sticks, the teachings we use when we're making the drum, how we sing the song, and then also, on the northern side versus what we sing on the southern side, even them, they have a little bit of the different structure and tone of how fast they sing the songs, how high they sing the songs, things like that.
And so we're at the Kalamazoo Valley Museum, and people are going to be pouring in here soon. So what do you want them to take away? What do you want people that are seeing you tonight to feel, to think, to understand?
I'd like them to, get that feeling of maybe how we feel when we're singing. Want them to get to the point where they may hear that song and it makes the hair on their arm just raise up enough a little bit there just to give them that feeling. So I know there's times when we're singing, or there's a moment where we're singing an honor song and we see the families out there just truly appreciating that sound and the teachings that it comes with it, along with how it invokes their spirit and the spirit of maybe who they're talking to or praying for, and it just gives them that feeling to the point of where they're just, oh, I feel really good.
This was the very first storyteller. His name was Akiwezi. Aki means earth, and Wezi means a long journey or a long time. When you put those together, you would say, well, he was a long time or a long journey on this earth, which is another way of saying he was an old man. He was a very old man. He was so old that people in the village didn't even know how old he was. He was so old that he didn't know how old he was. And every day he would get up from his wigwam and he would walk off into the bush. And once in the bush, he felt better. He took comfort there. He was surrounded by all this life and all this beauty, and that comforted him.
Well, Larry, you are an American native storyteller and a master storyteller too. How did that all come to be?
Well, I was a member of a traveling drumming and dancing troupe, and we used to travel all over the Great Lakes Basin. And it just so happened that I happened to tell a story while we were having supper. We had 9 people in the troupe, and I was just told a story, and several people said I did a good job, and wow, that was a good story, and that sort of thing. So just like anybody else, when you start getting compliments about what you're doing, you want to do more of it to get more compliments. So that's how I started, and then I found a great deal of truth and honesty in the stories, and a great enlightenment about those native peoples from so long ago who made these stories and who told these stories, and there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of lessons to be learned from the story, and that fascinated me. So I started being a storyteller, billing myself as a storyteller, and when I did, other Native people, a lot of the elders, grandmas and grandpas, they'd pull me aside and say, well, I've got a story for you. And they started giving me stories. It's about 40 years now that I've been studying and analyzing and trying to recover stories and share those stories. Well, on this one particular day, he got up in the morning, opened his flap, started walking out into the bush. He had to go through the village. And as he walked through the village, there was a group of boys, and they were playing hacky sack. Now, I told you Kwesi was an old man. He was a very old man. And like an old man, he took small steps, and he walked kind of slow. And as he passed that group of boys playing hacky sack, one of those boys left the circle of hacky sack players and went out and snuck around and came up behind Kwesi and was walking slow and bent over like he was. And the little boy would turn, he'd giggle to his chums a little bit, and he'd do some more.
And you have a show here at the Kalamazoo Valley Museum. Tell me a little bit about that.
Someone at the museum contacted me and heard that I was a storyteller and wondered if I had any stories about the nighttime sky. And I did, and we made a production where I tell stories in the planetarium, and then the planetarium, through their technology, illustrate the stories in the sky or in the ceiling or in the planetarium. And so it seems they're still running it after 20 years, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback and reviews, so it must be okay. After a little while, Kwesi says, oh, look at those heartberries. Odaman. The word for heart is Oday. The word for strawberry is Odamin, or heartberry. And we call them that because of their color and their shape, eh? So the little boy, he gathered up a bunch of those heartberries. They continued walking. They spent the whole day in the bush. Kwesi pointing things out to the boy. There's the beaver dam, and there's the beaver lodge, and over there some birch trees that are good to harvest. Well, evening came and they went back to the village. They got to the edge of the village, and the young boy ran ahead looking for his friends. And he found his playmates, and he said, Shawa, he said, that old man is awesome. He knows all sorts of stuff about the bush.
You also have a memoir, which I wanted to talk about.
Well, it's titled Lost from the Ottawa, The Story of the Journey Back. And it recounts my adoption away from the Native community into the white world. That's the lost part. There was also some historic events that I was involved in. I had a U.S. Supreme Court case that it was against Richard Nixon, and we outlawed, or we got Nixon to stop wiretapping domestic dissidents. I was a so-called domestic dissident, and the Nixon administration wiretapped me, and it was an illegal wiretap, a wiretap done without a warrant. And that ended up going to the Supreme Court, which we won. Well, this went on day after day, every day. Kwesi wake up and there's all them kids, and off they go into the bush. In the meantime, the parents to these children began speaking amongst themselves. And they were saying things like, well, isn't it wonderful that a Kwesi is spending all this time with the children? Oh yeah, everyone agreed, yeah, that's wonderful. Someone said, well, you know, he's teaching them things that we don't even know. Oh, they said, we're truly blessed to have a Kwesi spend his time with the children. And then someone spoke up and they said, well, maybe we should move his lodge from over there, and we should put him right here in the center of the village. Oh, that's a good idea, everyone said. So they moved his lodge. Kwesi opened that door one morning. He told those children, he says, this will be my last day with you, for I'm going through the western door. He said, but when I'm gone, leave my wigwam just as it is. So he spent that whole day with those children, teaching them the medicines. Evening came and they went back to the village, and everyone went to their lodges. And then morning came. Now usually a Kwesi got up when the sun was over here, about 7 or 8 o'clock. Today already the sun was straight overhead. It was noon. And a Kwesi hadn't gotten up yet. Remember the little boy who started this story? The one who walked up behind a Kwesi? Well, he stood up and he said, I'm going to look in that lodge. Oh, all the other kids, they took a step back. That kind of That made him kind of uncomfortable. But that little boy, he walked right up there and he took that flap and he looked in, and there lay Koezi. He had passed away in the night, just like he said he was going to. But as always happens, spring followed. And those kids were out playing one day, and that same little boy, remember him? He said to his playmates, he said, let's go over to Koezi's lodge. And now Koezi's lodge is all laying on the ground and it's returning to the earth. And that little boy looked down where Koezi's bed was and he said, oh, look, a little oak tree. Koezi kept his promise. He came back as a little oak tree. And I hope you picked up, because it's more than just that story. We moved his lodge from over there and we put education right in the center of the village. Huh? Those elders, they are the encyclopedias, they are the Googles of their time. So the whole story is about the elder and the children. And we're taught that the reason elders and children get along so good is that both are equal distance from the Creator. Children have just come from the Creator. Elders are getting much closer to the Creator. And here's a perfect example right here.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Kalamazoo Lively Arts. Check out today's show and other content at wgvu.org. We leave you tonight with a performance from the Connecting Chords Music Festival. I'm John Koch. Have a great night.
Support for Kalamazoo Lively Arts is provided by the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation, helping to build and enrich the cultural life of Greater Kalamazoo.